Hello! Welcome to Live with Ron. I'm filling in for Tegan. So we're going to kind of recap what we asked last week. So we had asked a couple questions or discussed a couple features. One of which was if we would take the time, or if you would take the time to index a source that you uploaded if they made that a feature. It seemed unanimously, overwhelmingly, that people were absolutely in favor of that. Which is just awesome. I love to hear that people are willing to index. The other question we asked that was also just astonishingly positive in the affirmative was, if we created an option for never married, would you be opposed to it or for it? And it sounds like most people were very much for it. So, I mean, it looks good.
Thank you.
I mean, and we've got my dad here, Ron. He took a whole week off this week, get some spring cleaning done. We've been in the trenches of cleaning, right?
Yeah.
Getting that around, so. All right, well, should we get started then? Okay. Yeah. All right. So our first question comes from Beth in Canada. She does follow you. She says, well, this is a rather substantial question. She says, when you are attaching a source using the source linker, currently you can only add details that are missing, but cannot overwrite something that is already there. She gives an example. She says, for example, if I had my ancestor's birth date as, quote, about 1875, Canada, close quote, but then found her actual birth record, and I'm trying to attach it, I cannot overwrite the data with the more correct information from the index record. For example, that says 1st of May, 1875, blank city, province. Is this something you would consider changing? She says this would save her a lot of time, would really help her. She said, then she has another question. She says, similar.
Well, let's do the first question.
Yeah, let's just get that first answer. So,
okay, so this is not, this has been requested often. We haven't come around to it, although we're looking at the screens and how we would redesign this. But the issue is this: when you're in the, she referred to the source linker, she said.
Yeah, she said source linker, and it was in regards to birth date. And she also did. I wanted to mention. Beth was very polite. She did say, sorry if the question's a little long-winded, but I can tell this is something that she really cares about.
Okay, so May 18th and 1860, and this one says May about, just a minute, I'm showing a thing here.
For those of you that don't know, I'm his son. That's who I am, so. Oh, hello, Karen. Good to have you here with us.
Okay, so on the source linker, just to remind everybody, I just marked it my table.
It's just Expo. It'll come off.
Okay, so on one side is the source.
Tilt it a little forward. It's kind of glaring a little bit.
One side's the source, and you can see there, and she's talking about on the record, May has a name and stuff like that and other information. And on the right-hand side is the person that we showed the hint on. And so she's clicked the hint. Now she's in attaching the source to the people. And this particular person, it expands a little bit. And she sees that there's a birth date on this side of May 18, 1860. On the right-hand side has a date that was entered in previously that says about May 1860. And what she'd like to do is be able to send that one over there because this is more precise than the other side. There's also lots of other reasons why you may want to take the thing on the left and overwrite the thing on the right, or be able to edit it. We're very much aware of this, and we understand the desire, but there's a problem. Let me tell you the stickler that we have, and we started working on redesigning this UI so that we can pull this off, because we'd like to do this. In Family Tree, we're a community tree where everybody sees everything and everybody owns all the data. And part of that, in order to make that work well, we need to make sure there's sources and that people see the sources. People see the reason statement, why the prior person put in what they put in, who that prior person was, and when they put it in. And all of that's very, very, very important information that will cause you to rethink and see whether the answer you want to change to is better than the answer that's already there. Well, the problem with that is there's not enough room on the screen, and they get way too confusing. They've tried 2 or 3 times to put in a UI that says something like, this, and then here's the reason for this birth date. Here's the sources for those birth dates.
Oh,
and have to click on the sources to see the sources.
A lot of nesting.
And that's like half the page. That's probably a good chunk of the person page in order to show all of that data for you to say, is this source more important, or does it
more
credible than these, or does it say the same thing as these, and so it's better? But all of that is evidence you have to examine before you decide to overwrite something with something else. And what we're struggling with is how to find space on the screen and make it not confusing on doing that. So that's the reason why you can't do it right now. Because if there's no birth date on this side, then you can move it right over, because there's nothing over here to worry about. There's nothing over there to compare and understand why somebody else put it in. So that's the reason why you can't do it right now. We want to do it, but we have to come up with a user interface, a screen that's good enough, that's not confusing, that will help you say, I want to look at this thing and compare it to here with all the sources, the reason statements, and all that kind of stuff, so that you can make a good decision. So that's the reason why it's not there.
Before we get carried away erasing, actually, her next question is actually very similar. It also relates to the source linker. She says a similar issue when she's adding information from an index record, say, for example, where the city name was misspelled by the indexer, or maybe you have more information, not necessarily important information there. It says, can you make the information you're moving over editable? So I believe what she's asking is, can this information I'm bringing over, can I edit it before I add it?
Yeah, we haven't got to that either, but that's actually easier to do, because if there's nothing over on this side, it's easy enough to open the edit. Mm-hmm. But currently, just move it over. But I see what you're saying. So this says, like, she's saying a city. So this says St. Louis, but it's Louis, and then that's all it says. But it's Missouri and stuff like that. So when it moves over, you'd like to edit it over here and finish it out and write St. Louis, Missouri.
Rather than having to go to the person page.
Yeah, then right. So I get that one. And actually, that's probably a good idea to try to look at doing that one first, since that's easier.
So there you go.
So we're trying to do it all at one whack, but maybe because it's taken us a while to get to it, maybe it's better to think about this one first. So thanks for this suggestion. Excuse me. Thanks for this suggestion. And thank you.
I think it's a great idea.
So I've given you the reason why it hasn't worked yet. So we've just got to figure that out.
So Barbara, it seems like she joined us. She says hi.
Hi.
So let's continue.
Okay, next question.
So this is from Robert G. He says it's in relations to memories. He says, what happens when you unmerge or restore a record regarding memories and sources? He also said, is it appropriate to detach duplicate memories, like duplicate photos or stories from person and tree? So the first question.
So the first one is about merging and restoring,
and what happens in regards to memories.
Right.
In that case.
Okay. So if you do, remember that if this is the person, this is person 1, and this is person 2, and person 1 has memories on it, memory 1, and this one has memory 2 on it, and then this person gets merged into person 1, the memories automatically come over. So at this point in time, person 1 has memory 1 and memory 2. Okay? And this one still has memory 2. So if at this point in time no edits has occurred, then you push unmerged, and what happens is this comes back to visibility, and this M2 is erased from there. So it goes back to what it originally was before the merge occurred. Yeah. That only happens if you click unmerge in the change log. Now, oftentimes, at this point in time is when you can do unmerge. But often there's some additional things that were added, more conclusions are added. And then you realize, or somebody realizes, that P2 is not the same person as P1, we need to undo. Remember, at this point in time, P1 has both memory 1 and memory 2. And when you do a restore, all it does is brings P2 back. That's all it does.
It doesn't draw any data over.
It doesn't take away any of this because we don't know what to do with that data. And so we just make no changes to this site because we don't know what to do with this data or if the memory's still there or whatever. We want to get smarter on this, but it's a ways out. We have some very good ideas, and with our new database, we can do some really slick things, but it's a little bit out in the future. We have some things we need to do beforehand.
Pretty complicated.
So right now, yeah, it's complex. So right now, memories are still on this person that were about this person, and so it's appropriate for you to go and go in and manually detach that person. Same thing, exactly the same thing with sources, because you asked about sources.
It was all about memories, but I believe.
Oh, it was just about memories.
Yeah, but I believe sources people probably would appreciate that as well. I think
memories you don't get to choose in the merge, so it automatically comes over without your choosing.
And then he's mentioned, is it appropriate to detach or delete duplicate memories?
Well,
so let's say you upload a picture of your mother.
Yeah, it's certainly okay, but and it's okay to do, but I mean, imagine from the perspective of the other person. The perspective of the other person who uploaded that memory. So you have two different people in the family went off and scanned a picture, probably the same picture. They scanned it. Each of them scanned it once, and then they uploaded it. And so as far as the machine knows, it's the two different files, right, as far as the computer knows. Because it maybe scanned it just slightly different, or the picture slightly different. And so we don't know those are two pictures. If you detach it, then the other person feels like, well, why did mine get removed?
Yeah.
So what I would do, and this happens occasionally, especially as family members are starting to join doing things together, the appropriate thing would be to send a message to that person or a comment on their picture and say, hey, there's already this picture attached to this person. So we only need one of them, but it doesn't do any good. Just waste space on the screen to see the same picture over and over. There's one I've seen before. It has 3 or 4 of the exact same picture. Or it's the same picture, but one's zoomed in, one's been photoshopped a little bit to make it look cleaner and take out the scratches, and one has been little tiny original. It's all the same picture, but they have different treatments on them. And you might want to contact them and say, hey, there's already this picture on there. Can you go ahead and just detach it or and not attach it or something like that? That's probably the appropriate thing. It's not against the rules for you to detach it. That's perfectly fine. But
it's just maybe more courteous.
You just need to be more courteous to talk to them, send them a message first. And that's true for sources as well. You do need to be careful with the sources. He didn't know about sources.
No, it's not sources. Just memories.
I got sources in my head.
Everyone talks about sources every week?
I don't know. Okay.
So Linda also checked in. She said hi.
Hi. Glad to have you.
Yeah, it's always good to have people we know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe she's been with us before. I don't know.
I
I've
imagine.
been here the whole time. So,
welcome to the newbies if you haven't.
Yeah.
We're a little off our game. We haven't done this for. We took a break last week, which was
did.
nice, and we're kind of in the middle of spring cleaning. I took the week off so I could be home working, and we're all wore out and tired and achy from hauling things around. I mean, spring cleaning around here at the Tanner
bed
house
full of trash.
Right, is go through every cupboard, every nook and cranny.
Do I use this? Throw it.
Yeah, and do the old garage sale, DI, or garbage, and we've got plenty of stuff.
Well, let's continue. So,
Okay.
Brian has a couple questions, but the first question he asks, he says, I often see memories that are uploaded and saved with no title or description, leaving us or me to guess who the people in the photo are or are in the document. Could a title and or description be required before the uploaded memory can be saved?
Oh, well, we would never require that before they can save it, because we'd like to, we don't want to discourage people from uploading memories and photos that are precious that might disappear. And it is correct that we haven't been doing a very good job telling people that they need to get a title in and they need to get a description. We certainly complain to people about not tagging the face, right? Putting a circle on the face and put a name. But there are people out there that don't know the names of their people in the picture. I mean, I went through and scanned a bunch of my mother's in these boxes, and I I didn't hardly know anybody. There's nothing written on the back, so I go and ask her, and she's like, I don't remember who that was. And you always think you're going to remember. So what I did was, when I went through her box and started seeing myself and my family, my children when they're little, I immediately turned the picture over and wrote down all the names in order. Who's in there?
Left to right.
Left to right, top to bottom, whatever. I recommend you do that to every picture you're taking or you're digitizing or you're keeping. Go in there in the description and describe everybody that's in there, left to right, top to bottom.
That way you have a record.
Because you're going to forget, or you're not going to be around, and nobody knows who those people are. And we always say, well, I'll know who they are because I took the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you might forget too later. So just always remember to write it down.
Keep accurate records.
Keep a record of that.
I guess the general
anyway,
answer is no.
The general thing is we don't necessarily want to not allow them to save the picture if they don't put a title and description. However, we are discussing having what we call a data problem. You've seen that in Family Tree, where we see things like no standardization, birth after death, things like that. We are talking about maybe we should have a data problem there to say, you need a title, you're missing a title here, and you're missing a description.
Like a firm recommendation.
That's right. They can dismiss it, but we wanna encourage them to do that. So I think the team, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. They're thinking about it and how they would do that, and we have to decide whether you can dismiss it or not dismiss it. And so we're discussing it.
Okay.
What's the second question?
Well, so he asked another question a few days later, so we'll come back to
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll come back.
that. So Mary Kay, we'll call her Mary Kay. Oh, and by the way, Debbie says hello. Mary Kay says, I do a lot of searching from the search to family tree menu. I believe that's the search drop down. That's what you're talking about.
Well, in Family Tree, it's find. In Family Search, it's called search. They do two different things.
Okay. So she says search in family tree.
Okay.
I'm curious if there would be a way in future to add all spouses to the search results rather than just the first listed one. I'm sure it would save me time clicking through to verify if I had the right individual. Smiley face.
I'm assuming she's talking about the search results.
Well, so she says right here.
On the results.
Yeah. So she would say, let's search Schmitty Van Wormenjaker, right? And rather than seeing all of, we see one particular spouse or individual directly related to them, she's wondering if she could also see their spouses. So let's say he had two brothers named Tommy, but one was married to a Mary.
Well, I think we show a spouse. She wants to see multiple spouses.
Yeah, I guess it's all spouses.
Yeah, put that down on the sheet.
Okay, you want to ask a question about it?
No. This is something for you to remind me to go not forget about.
Okay, so we need to maybe research on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So all spouses.
All spouses on search results in a find. So put that on there. And that's just something to remind me.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Good.
This is his first time flying solo.
It is my first time flying solo, and I hope there isn't too much turbulence.
Yeah.
It might be a little bumpy, but
Okay.
I'm here for the long haul.
Okay.
So
what's next?
So you don't have an answer for that one?
No, I don't know.
Okay, great. So Brian,
we certainly know the information. It's just whether we have to look at redesigning the screen and see if it makes it look what it looks like.
Okay, so we'll get back to you on that one, hopefully. So Brian, another Brian question. He says, does the 2-year limit on temple ordinance reservations apply to ordinances that have been printed, or only to those that have been reserved but not printed? Once an ordinance has been printed, is there any limit on the time to complete it?
Okay, this is the way it works. On the 2-year reservation is your reservation expires whether you've printed it or not. So it doesn't matter whether it's printed or not printed. If it's on your list and you have not shared it to the temple, then it's subject to the 2-year release. We recognize that if you have a printed card, you should really try to destroy that card if it got released during the 2-year reservation removal. But we understand if you happen to have a card. It's not going to be rejected, and it's not going to fail if you go to the temple with that card. It just means that there will be a duplicate ordinance done potentially on that person because somebody else may have reserved it and printed their card.
No.
So we recognize that, but it's acceptable. It's better to be able to free up the names that have been reserved and aren't getting the work done in a timely manner that the brethren have asked for. So everything is subject to being released, except for the names shared with the temple. Those are not. Sometimes I get a phone call or I get an email that says this person's had it for years. It's never getting released. How come it's not getting released? Well, 99% of the time I go look at it is because one of two things. One is it's shared with the temple, so there is no time limit when you share it with the temple. And the second thing is currently our releasing of the temple or reservations is done manually. We're working on an automated version, but we don't have it done yet, so we do it manually. And that's done, we usually end up doing it sometime in November time frame. But the date we pick to see which ones need to be released are ordinances were reserved before May that year. So in November, we'll look at unreserving those that have been reserved prior to May 1st, 2016. Okay. So they get all 16, all 17.
Oh, okay.
To get it done. Oh no, it'd be 2015.
Yeah.
So 15 to 16, 16 to 17. If it's not done by May 2017 and it's been reserved longer since the 2015, then it's subject to be unreserved. Now remember that we also have other rules that say stuff like if the person has reserved it 2 years ago, let's say they reserved it in 2015, May 1st, and then 2016 goes, 2017 is coming, and they go and do one ordinance. Let's say they go do the endowment or the baptism and confirmation. It's based on the last ordinances they did. So even though they reserved it long ago, 2 years ago, if they do an ordinance in April, in April they do an ordinance, and that restarts the clock for them. They get 2 years from the last ordinance they did. And the reason we did that is because we didn't want people who might have had it in their reservation list, and then near the end they started, okay, now it's time for this one because I finally got the others done. Yeah. Now it's time for this one. We didn't want to just yank it out from underneath them when they went ahead and got started on it. So there is a couple of twists in the rule, but just so you know, 2 years starting May 1st, 2 years previously, they get reserved. Printed or not printed doesn't matter. It still is subject to the 2 year release, and it's based on the date of the last ordinance they performed.
Okay, so regardless if they're printed or not.
Right, regardless if they're printed or not.
Okay. All right. So Shannon asks, when on Family Tree or FamilySearch and working on a person's page, the page seems to freeze up. I try to refresh the page, that doesn't happen or doesn't help. I need to get out of the page, then close it down, then open up a new tab to FamilySearch, and then I have to go through and re-enter the PID to where I was working. I know it's not just me because I've spoken with others that have the same problem. Why does this happen?
Oh, I haven't heard about this.
Okay.
I haven't heard this from other people, so I don't know why it would freeze up per se. It's probably the network where you're at. That's usually the biggest cause. There have been some cases, we do have problems now and then at FamilySearch that things slow down. If you're talking about on a Sunday, we're usually pretty quick, unless you're talking about doing a reservation list or there's a few of the systems. Remember, we changed out the base of Family Tree. The base means everything that's on that person page except for sources. So it's the vitals and non-vitals, the relationships. We changed that system, and that system's like super speedy. And the rest of the system is still slow like it was before. And so we're gradually speeding up those other parts. And so you really have to understand what you're doing. So for instance, if you're just looking at the person page, it's fine. But if you click possible duplicates, it'll be really slow, so it can feel like it's hung up. If you push, do something with sources, that's not as fast as the Family Tree back in for the vitals, so that'll be a little bit slower. If you hit, it's usually possible duplicates. Change log should be pretty quick. Change log should be good. Vitals, other information, relationships, life sketch, notes Should be fast.
It seems like
discussions will be a little draggy.
A lot of the extraneous features. If you're just on the person page, it should work.
If you're just dealing with the basic stuff, the person page should be lightning fast. If you're dealing with some of these others, sources, discussions,
you might run into some
a little bit of memories, some temple ordinances, you might get a delay. So I'm sorry about that. We're continuing to work on speeding things up. It takes a long time we have to rewrite and refactor these things.
Kind of like rebuilding the car. You switch all the different little pieces.
Yeah, we just put in a brand new engine, but we've got an old carburetor and old spark plugs and old other things. So we gotta fix them up too.
As we go.
If you continue to have it happen, try to find out the time of day that it's happening and the day. It's Sundays at this time. Sundays in the afternoon is going to be the worst. That's when most people come. But it's been performing. We monitor it and we send alerts to ourselves if performance looks like it's lagging way behind. Then we jump on and check it out.
Would this be something she could contact?
Yeah, you can. No, you can contact support, or you can contact support. That's probably the first thing. If it's starting to happen, notice the time of day and the day of the week and what PID you're working on. It may be specific to that PID. Then just contact support, send in a support case, and say, hey, on this day, on this Sunday, or this Tuesday or Wednesday at this time, on this PID, I start working on it. It gets really slow when I try to do blah. And then it allows us to go look back at the logs and see what was happening during that time and see if we can figure out why it would be slowing up for you. Okay?
So, Denise asked, when will the new family history activity report be available?
Well, it's being rolled out to different stakes. It's in the beta version for those of you who have access to LDS.org. I'm not sure. I didn't look the other day. I looked and I saw it on mine. I'm a state clerk and I saw it in there. But I didn't go look to see who gets to see it and who doesn't get to see it. So I don't know if other people would see it. But it wasn't into my stake until just this last week. But I know of other stakes that said they've already had it. So I think the church is rolling it out stake by stake by stake. So I don't know when your stake would particularly have that. They didn't send us any kind of announcement about it. You'll know the clue if you use LDS.org because Leader and Clerk Resources, if it comes up and says when you click on it, hey, do you agree to be looking at the beta version of this Leader and Clerk Resources? If you see that, then odds are the Family History Activity Report is there. It's not like what it was described in the Roots Tech session. It doesn't have its own family history area with a report underneath it. The report's just right there in the middle of all the other quarterly reports and everything else. So it didn't get any special subheading or anything. So, so I don't know when it'll be there, but just keep looking and it'll show up.
Sooner than later, I imagine.
Sooner or later.
So the next question is from Greg in regards to discussions.
Okay.
He says, I often see old discussions that are no longer relevant. He says the issues seem to be resolved and they seem to be simply cluttering up the record with irrelevant information. He says, why can't I delete old discussions? He says the only way that seems to be able to delete them is to get all participants in the discussion to delete their own individual sections. He says this is often impossible because a lot of people don't respond to messages.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a little bit about the theory of why discussions are the way they are. This is one of the few places in Family Tree that are not open-edit, right? And we felt like for the following reasons. I mean, when we sit around and we think about a new feature, we think about all the devious ways that users try to figure out how to get around them. And we miss a few, so you all figure out ways to get around stuff. But in this discussions, we sat and thought, okay, if I'm posting the first discussion and I type in something that's controversial or whatever, and then everybody replies and responds to my discussion, if it's open edit, well then somebody could just go in and change my post
to be whatever
they want, make it look like I really meant something else, and now everybody's response was a little weird, and so it felt like somebody was responding to a specific statement. And as long as the reply's there, the statement has to be there, unchanged. But I get it. I get it where discussions are old. I'm wondering if maybe, it just popped into my head, so put this down on another tab. I'm wondering if we could look at archiving a discussion. Maybe we can do that. Let me go think about that and see what archiving when it would archive, whether somebody could just click to archive it.
Maybe make it non-editable anymore.
Well, what we do is we put it in the changelog or something as archived away, or we put another button that says "Go show archived discussions."
Well, I just think about as a younger generation, I Google things a lot to find out. I want to learn about this, and I Google it. I'll give you an example. I've got a pair of headphones that doesn't seem to want to work with my particular setup, and so I Googled it to see if I could make it work. And I stumbled across a conversation on a forum from like 3 years ago. Right, so it may not be relevant to you, or it may not be relevant to him, but maybe I might find it relevant.
Yeah.
So I mean,
well, if we do something like that, we'd have to remember to make it, searchable or something.
Yeah,
findable.
something.
So put that in there to remind me.
So I got it. Archiving discussion.
Okay.
Any additional information on that one?
And archiving discussions, but dash searchable with a question mark or something. Okay, so let me think about that. I'll go back and we'll noodle on that one a little bit.
Okay.
Good idea.
All right. So Pow, I believe that is Pow, P-A-U.
Okay.
Pow said, "Is it possible to choose the language of the app? According to the FAQ, the app is available in 9 languages, but apparently it's the app who chooses the language to be shown according to the OS language, meaning the operating system on the phone.
Yeah.
If we have the OS of the phone in a non-supported language, then the default language that is shown is always English. It's a problem for my mother, who doesn't know English. She would like to use the app in Spanish, but it's not the language of her phone's OS, but it is a language that she can understand."
Well, that's pretty highly unusual. It's
Yeah.
highly unusual that you use your phone in one language, and I guess
So
it must be
she wants to use
must
the
not
app
be
in Spanish, but her phone's not in Spanish.
right. Her phone must be in some other language, I guess.
Uh,
She must speak Spanish, but her phone's in some other language.
Portuguese, maybe?
We do Portuguese.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. It's okay. So
Italian, maybe?
well, then they'd want to see their app in Italian.
So are you saying that all these languages are available? So what languages, do you know what languages are available in the app?
Yeah, we do 10 languages.
Okay.
We do, English, of course, Portuguese, Italian, German, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Russian, Mongolian.
Okay.
So we,
Pretty out there.
Yeah. So so it would be interesting to know what language she's on. So we did it based on the language of the OS, and that's just really because we just assume, and that's usually a good assumption for a mobile app. So he's talking about the mobile app, the mobile family tree, or mobile memories, and so I'll put that in my list too. I think that's something that we could probably do.
So like a manually changeable language.
Yeah, a setting that says I don't care what my OS language is, make mine this language. That's a reasonable request, and it's certainly we have all the data down there to do that. So
Okay.
I'll go talk to my guys about that one.
He'll noodle on it.
Okay.
All right. So Lonnie said, "I have an LDS account at FamilySearch and an LDS account at Ancestry. If I attach a source I found in Ancestry to a person in FamilySearch via the, quote, attach a source through website, close quote, option, will people still be able to see that source on FamilySearch if they don't have a subscription to Ancestry?" And then Lonnie says, "Thank you for your time and helping us."
Yeah. So currently, Ancestry does not share those images and indexes for people. So if you have an Ancestry subscription, and in that subscription you find a record and you hook it to your ancestor in Ancestry.com, and then you turn around and you synchronize that with your ID, with your PID in the person and family tree, it'll get the source, and it'll get the title, and it'll get the description, and it'll get a URL to that Ancestry thing. But if a person who doesn't have an account in Ancestry were to click it, then they'll just see a paywall blurb that says you need to pay money, and then you can see this.
Well, it is true, though, still that LDS members can get a free Ancestry account.
That's right. LDS members get a free Ancestry account today. And so if it's another member of the LDS Church, then they'll be able to register with Ancestry and get an account there for free, and then they'd be able to see it.
Yeah. So it's not to say that
It's not the
Ancestry
best.
doesn't.
It's not the best.
It's not that Ancestry doesn't let you show the data on your website. It's that they won't show the data to someone that doesn't have an Ancestry subscription.
That's right. Well, that's how they make their money. So I get it. So one of the things I would advise is, take the data out of the source that's valuable. You know, the data that's your reason why you're attaching this because it has this information. I would make sure that gets put in the notes somewhere on the Ancestry or in the description, so that when it comes over, you have everybody who sees it, even if they can't see the image, because they go on subscription, they at least can read
What it is.
from your description what it is and what's in it.
They have like a basic understanding of what it is.
Yeah, this one has his name and his name of this, and his birthday's this, and his parents are this name, his mom's this name, his dad's this name. Put in, sort of extract the data and put it in a little description comments. That way, other people can at least know what that data says.
So Sister King appears to be on here. She says hi, Ron and Jared.
Oh yes, hi.
It's
Next
good
door
to see
neighbor.
you.
Good
Yeah, the
nice
neighbor.
to come.
Yeah, it's great to have her. Okay, well, I think that's a pretty good answer. So Debbie asked, is there a way to combine the same source for an individual? For example, double marriage certificates for the same person, double entry for billion graves and find a grave. I think she's just asking if there's a way to combine any sources together if they're duplicate sources.
No, however, so currently there is not.
But there's a however.
There's a however. So let me just repeat what I understood the question was. The question
Okay.
was, if I have two sources, they're different in the sense of they have a different URL, they have a different link. So one goes to find a grave, one goes to billion graves, or one is a picture that was uploaded. Somebody took a picture of the headstone and uploaded it and made a source out of it. You essentially have three sources that are the exact same physical thing. So we call that just to get our language correct.
Get a little lingo.
Yeah. So when you say source, and then this is called the reference. And then there's the
It gets really intense when you ask them to draw something. I'm telling you that much.
okay. So you can't read that, but it's that's supposed to say "rest in peace" up there. So here's a headstone, "rest in peace," and grass growing underneath it.
Okay.
That's the picture. This is the source. It has a title, a URL, description, and a notes section. Oh no, citations. That's why I didn't look right.
Because it isn't.
Yeah, citation with a C. So a source is simple in our world. It's just a title, URL, citation, and notes. And the source is attached to a person, and the URL points to a picture. So all we're talking about here is that we got multiple of these things.
I'm trying to help you hold it up there.
Just hold it there so I
Okay.
don't go off the table.
All right, I got you.
So what I'm saying is I got multiple of these here that are pointing to the same picture. Whatever. It's not the exact same picture, but this was on Ancestry, this was on Billion Graves, this was on Find a Grave.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever. It's all still the same. And so what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to take, this is a reference, so this one's attached here, this one's attached. You want to really take these attachments here and group them together so that you have one thing that has, source 1, source 2, and then they attach to the person like so.
So you would
I'm
no
assuming.
longer have.
So you wouldn't have any of this stuff. You collapse these two together, source 1, source 2, into this new thing, and then you attach that thing there.
So in essence, this is a source on that, and that's just kind of backing this up.
Well, this one still has the title, URL, citation, and all. Title, URL, citation, and all. But they're actually about the same physical thing, because that's the same headstone as that one, even if it's two different pictures. Right? We call these we call artifacts in our world. That's artifact. That's the physical thing.
Yeah.
This is a source in our systems, and then of course the person, and this is called a reference. So what you're wanting to do is you want to collapse these two together and say they're really the same source. Let's collapse them. Well, we have other things that kind of collapse things, right? What do we call that? We call that a merge. When we merge two people together.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sitting.
She's sitting there. I was a test. It was a test,
and I failed.
Oh, yeah.
That's the answer. I failed.
So we have another thing that's kind of like this. It's called a merge, but this is a little different. We want to be a little different because we don't want to lose access to these two pictures, even if they're the same physical thing. We still would like to look at the two different pictures.
Yeah, well, maybe one's shaky and one isn't.
Yeah, or one's better highlights or focused or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we're thinking about, and we've been talking about this actually for several months, and we're getting close to deciding what we're going to do. So we're trying to figure out a way to collapse two sources that are the same artifact, that talk about the same artifact, and then allow people to group these together. We'd have to be able to take them apart. If somebody goofs up and puts the two wrong things together.
Similar to the merge and unmerge.
Yeah. So it won't be exactly like a merge because you don't overwrite the stuff.
Well, similar.
But it's similar. And we thought while we're doing this, we'd also might be interesting to have extracted data. So here's a question I'm going to ask you. So you need to flip to your tab.
Yeah.
When it comes to sources, especially sources that have some sort of memory or a picture or from another site, would you be willing to index those sources and write in there, like maybe on this object, maybe this is a new kind of source, and maybe on the side it has data, and you could type in data in here that's missing. Like for example, and this is just so I don't push you too hard, but let's say these are two censuses, and they're 1940 census. They're both the 1940 census. But FamilySearch only extracted the name and the birthday, the age, name and the age, and the sex, male or female. But Ancestry, they extracted four additional fields. Yeah. It would be nice to combine them together and see all of those fields. Plus, it might be interesting to be able to look at the source and say, look at the artifact, and then say, hey, it says he was a farmer. And so you go in and add farmer down here. So this is all of the index. It's like indexing these sources to get more rich data. Would you be willing to do that? That's what I'm going to ask you. We'll set up a little thing to ask. Would you be willing? We asked you before if you'd be willing to do some of that for memories. Now I'm asking, would you be willing to do that for sources too? If FamilySearch only did a little bit of the indexing, would you be interested in indexing more of the record to have more of that rich data available and maybe even searchable? So we'll send out a questionnaire on that on Facebook and see. I see some yeses flying out, but we'll send that out as a question and get your responses so that we can see.
Linda said that would be great.
Yeah, some of us we've talked about this, and sometimes we wonder whether people will really be willing to do that, or would they just say, I already got the picture, that's all I need. So if we have the indexes, then it just makes it better. It's more searchable for other people, and it also allows us to do some smart things like, what if we could tell you, hey, this source has a birthday on it, and here's all the birthdays on all the sources that are attached to this person, and here's the birthday you put on the person, and are they the same, and why are these different, and you have to be able to understand that sources are going to say different things. Mm-hmm. The censuses are taken at different times of the year. In one census, they could be a year older than the next census.
Or maybe you had a lazy census taker.
Right. So it's good to know, though, that there's different values for these birth dates, and that's okay. But it'd be nice to look at them all and maybe put up an explanation there.
Absolutely. So, we'll shoot that out.
We'll shoot that out for you later. And
have an opportunity to give us your feedback on that.
Okay.
So, Tara asks, if a name has been submitted to the temple, can I go to the temple and request them to print it so I can do it that day?
Say that again?
Okay. So she's asking if a name has been submitted to the temple, can she go to the temple and then request the temple print it for them so that she can do it on that same day?
I'm assuming what she's discussing about is she goes to the temple and wants to tell him. I'm assuming this is not somebody that she has reserved. That's what I'm assuming.
Well, I mean, she didn't mention reserve. She did say that it's a name that, or she says if a name has been submitted. So I guess it's right. It's just a general name. So,
Yeah. So
let's say your brother has submitted a name. He said, "Oh, I really wanted to do that."
yeah, no, there's no facility to do that at the temple. Just imagine the reason why. The temple's trying to be very efficient, get everybody in to get to a session. They don't want to have to stop and have a whole bunch of workers who need to be doing other work and sessions and stuff to take special requests. So there is not a current, as far I'm not aware of any way that you'd be able to go into the temple and say, I want to do this PID that I found in FamilySearch that I know has been shared to the temple. And there just isn't a way to do that. But I do understand the desire to take a relative that you have that's been shared to the temple. And I understand that, you know, you can look at that and it doesn't get released in the 2 years. And sometimes they've been sitting there for a long time. I need to help you understand why some of that happens. The temples, the way the temples work today is when you share with the temple, it's put in a pool so that that temple can use it when it needs ordinances. And other temples only take from that when they have none in their pool for that. So let's say you put an endowment you shared, and maybe your temple has 1,000 endowments sitting in the pool, so they don't really need a whole lot of it. So it'll sit there for a while. Another temple, somebody walks in and says, I want to do an endowment, and they don't have any, so they'll pull from any temple district and get an endowment. But so if you're from an area that has a lot of family history going and a lot of sharing to the temple, then you can have a big pool, and so it could take a little while. We're re-examining that to see how we can make it so that things move a little smoothly and more even across all the temple districts. So stay tuned for some of that. We've been working on. Can't share it with you yet, but
it's in discussion.
We got some good discussions going on with the brethren about how we can readjust things to help that.
Okay. Great.
Okay, but there isn't a currently way to do that. Your best hope is to contact the person who has shared that with the temple and tell them I'm willing to go take it right now, and ask them if they, do one of two things: either unshare it and send it to you, or unshare it, print that ordinance, and send you the PDF. Then you go do it, and they still have it if they still want it and stuff like that. Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, the next one is from Boatfish. Boatfish.
Boatfish. Okay.
Boatfish.
That's his nickname.
Yep. The question, help me make sense of it. It says, how do I get rid of, on FamilySearch, there's one question that I have, is child born, mother born. So it's a confusing question. All right. So it's not, it could have been worded better.
How do I get rid of?
On FamilySearch, there's one question that I have is child born and mother born. Maybe who the child was born to this person and the mother was born to this person? A parent-child relationship, maybe? What do you think?
I don't know if I understand. So, Boatfish, if you're out there, you see this, maybe you need to send me a personal email at ron@familysearch.org, ron@familysearch.org, and give me some more details about what you're asking there.
Yeah.
I think I can imagine a couple or three different things.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a little general. It's a little hard to make sense of it.
Have a child born, mother born. One person that I have is child born, mother born. So I don't know if that's a question about a data problem. I can see that.
Yeah, I can see a lot of things.
Because we have a thing that's data problem will pop up if it says the mother was born after the child was born, or the child was born when the mother couldn't bear children, or the child was born after the mother died.
There's so many
we need to know more specifics about that to be able to answer that correctly.
So we would love to help you. So if you just submit another question or email him directly,
email me directly. Details. Tell me a PID. Tell me the specific problem you're having, and I can look into it.
Yeah, he'd be happy to help you.
Yeah, and we can maybe talk about it next time.
Okay. So the next one comes from Diane W. She asks, my goal right now is to add all the hints that FamilySearch gives me, but I have a problem. FamilySearch keeps finding more and more of them every day. She says this is a good problem, but why are there so many of them end up being duplicates?
Why are there duplicate hints?
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. It's funny how us humans think. You know, we all recognize that in the past there were multiple people working on genealogy on their own selves, and then they submitted Gedcoms to the church or added them to personal resource file, which we then shared with the world. And then we turned around and made one family tree that we put all the data in from all of these shared Gedcoms, and there was lots of duplicates. People understand that because different people didn't communicate before, and they made duplicate entries in their Gedcom. And then so now we have duplicates to combine. The funny thing is, same thing happened with sources, by the way. The same thing happens in microfilm. When you have a county, and then you have a neighboring county, often the neighboring county there'll be an overlap in records.
Yeah, that way they can have information.
They have it in that county because there's lots of people in that county. They had relatives in the other county, so they get a copy of those records and they put them in that county, so everybody be happy. And then the primary county, it has copies of the other one too, because people there have people in the other county. So when we come in and film the records and create images to be indexed, where we don't look and say, gee, has that record ever had its picture taken before? Oh, so we just go in and we take a picture of every record they have. Then we go to the other county and we take a picture of every record they have. And it just so happens that there's the same record in both sides. So that's how you get duplicate records. And we don't know the difference in the computer because to us, that is image 1 from that county, and over here it's in image 200 from that county. Yeah. And we don't know that those two are identical pictures.
There's no way for you.
There's no way for us to figure that out. Computers don't do that very well with pictures. So we can't tell it's the same picture. So we hint it because it's about that person. And that one you attach, and then the other one from the other county, which is exactly the same record, we say, hey, that one's about your person too. Attach that one. And so just attach them both so that the hint is taken care of and resolved.
And then it comes back.
And then we come back to the thing we talked about earlier, where wouldn't it be interesting to be able to combine two sources together that are about the same physical artifact? And yeah, that would be nice. And this could, that new capability that we're considering, that we're going to ask you about during this next week, is how you would resolve that. So you'd attach the hints and then you combine them together into a single super source that would have the two sources in it as components of that. Yeah. And so that's why it happens, because the record appeared in multiple places and we took pictures of them, and nobody's taking the time to say that picture's the same as that picture, and they didn't do that because they were too busy taking as many pictures as fast as they can, because we have lots of records that need to be captured before they die and get destroyed and get lost. So, hinting, by the way, if you have just a suggestion on how to teach other people, you know that the church has asked us to think about find, take, teach. And so do we have any more questions?
Well, she asked the second question.
Okay, let's go ahead and do the second question. And then put over
it's pretty brief. It says,
find, take, teach.
Why is it so difficult to get to the consultant planner? When will it be under help others?
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to ask the guys.
Okay, you'll check.
So put that on there. I'll go check. The consultant pattern, I think you have to know the URL, I think is what it is, instead of it won't be under help others, because help others is how to help somebody in family tree. The consultant planner is a different thing. And it seems like they need I think right now they're still testing it. It's not fully released, if I remember right. But they do need a nice button on there to get you the consultant planner. Something under help, it's probably a good choice.
Okay, and that's it.
Well, that's all our questions. What time is it, by the way?
It is 8:27.
Oh, okay. We got enough time for a couple more things.
So, wrong fact.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Find, Take, Teach. So the brother enrolled Find, Take, Teach out a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and it's a great message. Often when the brethren use simple phrases, it gets interpreted a lot of different ways. And that's great. That's okay, because each of us have our own capabilities and our own skill set and our own willingness to do family history. And they also have to be simple because they're talking to the entire world when they give their message. They're not talking to some heavy-duty, super genealogy stake, right, or ward. They're talking to all members of the church. Some people that don't even know what family history means, don't even have access to computers. They're using booklets, but they still want them to do find, take, teach. So let's talk a little bit about find, take, teach. We need to understand that find can mean lots of different reasons and things. For some people, it means go find a green temple in my line that I can do ordinance for. That's perfectly fine. Those with more maturity in genealogy recognize that there could be some issues there because maybe there was a relationship that was messed up, or that person's not fully documented, and so there could be some fictitious information about that person. And so, another meaning is I need to make sure it's clean, it's accurate, it's right, it's sourced before I take it to the temple. And that's great too. Both of these are great. We hope that the person who just goes in for the green temple learns and wants to know more because they have that great experience, so they want to learn more. So then it's our opportunity to do the teach part of find, take, teach. So all of us who have experienced the family tree and experienced this joy, however it came, from starting with memories, maybe we uploaded memories because we want them preserved and hooking them on people. Then all of a sudden we saw a hint. We tried the hint out. So, oh, this is what source is about. I can do this. And then pretty soon they're fixing the data on the person, and then they want a source for everything. And that's just a beautiful evolution. And so find means a lot of different things to a lot of different people based on their skill level. And everything's fine. It's okay to do the things people are doing. We want them to get more mature in their family history research, so we'd like people to learn. Well, if you have extra hints on people and you have somebody in your family, for example, you mentioned you have a bunch of hints that are there, and they keep coming. That's because new records are extracted, or because we're finding new ways to detect that person is in that record. Yeah. So we're always trying to improve our algorithms to do that. And but that's a perfect opportunity for you to teach a child or a grandson or a granddaughter or a cousin or a sister or a brother to say, hey, let's do a little family history together. Let's sit down and let's go to you and let's walk to great-grandpa. Oh, there's grandpa or great-grandpa. And notice it's hinting at the 1940 census from some other place or some other record that's already been attached, or something like it's already been attached. And say, hey, do you remember that grandfather? Oh, yeah, I do. What's your favorite story about that grandpa? Blah, 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 blah. Hey, let's write it right now. Let's go into into memories, and let's type that little memory right now. And you can come back and you can make it better and write more stuff in it, but let's do it right now so it doesn't get forgotten and lost, because you may not be able to come back to this thing. You may forget about it, but let's make sure it's there so everybody knows about this great experience you had with your grandfather. And then, while we're here, hey, there's a hint. Let's go look and see what that hint is. Let me tell you a little about what hints are. Hints means that they're sources, which are like official documents, like your birth certificate or your marriage certificate.
Census records.
Census records. It's those kind of records that governments took or saved, and they tell us about our ancestors. And hey, here's one about grandpa. Let's just check it out. And you talk about the screen and how source, and look how the source looks like them, and you need to go look at the names and make sure all the names make sense.
Yeah, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
I actually have a pretty cool little story about that. So
okay.
When I was on my mission, FamilySearch was a big thing. I was out on my mission during the time, and they were really pushing to have FamilySearch become a big part of the finding tools that missionaries use. And I remember the Tanner family line has been, very well researched, and everyone used to tell me, oh, you can never find more stuff or more interesting stuff about a developed family line. So I decided I was going to prove them wrong, because I'm that kind of person. Yeah. So I sat down and I just decided to start looking to try and find something interesting. And I came across one of these hints that you're talking about, and I love hints personally. And it was a death certificate, actually. It was absolutely amazing. I clicked on it, took a look at the image, actually. It had an image attached to it, so I took a look at that. And lo and behold, it had the individual's death, how he died. Yeah. And what it was a young couple, probably in their, I think it said something around their mid-20s, who had a little daughter. And this man worked at Gedcom copper mine which is a big copper mine out here in Utah. And unfortunately, he had suffered a workplace incident that had cost him his life. He'd actually been electrocuted. And I know this is rather morbid, but the point is that I had such an amazing spiritual experience because of this hint, and where I was able to connect with this family that had gone through obviously something that I do not want to endure, but because of their endurance, and because that little girl, had stuck with it, I got to be here on Earth. So I mean, the hinting, it was an amazing experience, and I've had dozens more like it. But I felt like maybe I'd share that.
No, thanks.
Say, hints are powerful things.
Yeah, so that's how you use the teach part, and you get somebody else inspired to do something else.
Yeah.
I think hints are a great way to do that, and it's okay to adding them to people that are already well documented, already have their ordinances done. The find isn't just about finding green stuff. If you find green temple, great, and that's a good thing. If you find out about a story or a person or something more about them that makes you feel connected, that's a great find too, and that's an excellent thing, and that's what turns hearts. If they come connected to them, then they understand love and they understand the desire to give them the same blessings that they have, and then that causes you to go do some more work and do the harder stuff.
I'm telling you, the feelings you get when you connect to a family member from the past are amazing. So.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We had some good questions. You stumped me on a couple of things and gave me a couple of ideas to think about in changing the product. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. We hope these continue to be useful. If there's keep coming and leave your questions. Don't wait for to give us the questions. The day of. You can certainly go in and ask and submit your questions anytime.
Anytime.
And we go first submitted.
It's first come, first
serve. So if you submit it, once tonight, then you'll probably be at the top of the list when we meet again next time.
Yeah.
So have a good evening,
Yeah.
and we'll see you later.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me be here too. Let me go.
Yeah, I'll let you go up there and hit that button.